Chapter 8. Whatever lurked beneath the marshal's skin didn't appear to be there now. He'd emerged from the back of the apartment without the knife, served up his takeout, carried it to the table by the window, and tucked in as though I wasn't in the room. I leaned back against the counter and watched him eat, the silence pulling thin between us. The next person who spoke would set the tone. If I threatened him again, he'd likely kick my ass again. He wasn't Fae fast. He was faster. Almost a blur. I didn't sense any magic on him, but then the magic I knew about was Fae-based, and everything I'd seen of him so far indicated he wasn't Fae. So what was he? He finally finished his food and leaned back in his seat, in no hurry to talk. Behind him, through the window, the station's framework glittered, illuminated by the blink of passing shuttle lights.
"What are you?"
he asked. I wanted so badly to ask him the same. What do you mean?
It's a simple enough question.
I'm human, obviously. He pressed his lips together. He didn't like the way I sidestepped his questions. He was probably used to suspects spilling their secrets every time he flashed his badge. After taking his time to consider my answer, he angled himself in the chair to face me.
All right. Here's what I don't understand. You wield tech, and that weird glow you sometimes summon is magic. Somehow, you can combine both. That shouldn't be possible. Tech and magic repel each other. Always have. We both know you're not Fae, but you're not human either. What you do? It defies everything we know about human capabilities. Humans can't wield magic. So what are you hiding, Kesh Lasota?
He was closer than he knew. It's not magic you're seeing. It's just enhanced tech. He wasn't buying it.
You interfere with any complicated tech in your immediate surroundings. I can't imagine it's a conscious skill. It's something built into you, a latent ability. Were you born with it?
It had been trained into me, the tech repelling. Plant-based secretions had been poured under my skin until it became part of who I was. But I wasn't about to tell him that. The truth of me, it was out of bounds. The marshal didn't need to get involved. He had asked enough questions. Now it was my turn. Why are you keeping me here?
I'm not.
He stretched out a leg and leaned back against the window, folding his arms across his chest.
You can walk out that door and hitch a ride off Juno anytime you want.
He appeared to be relaxed, but he could spring from that position with the barest physical tells. I'd hunted hundreds of killers, fought hundreds more. The marshal moved like them, but in a way that hid what he was capable of. Most killers wore their brutality like a badge, but not him. The image of himself he presented was a mask, hiding the truth inside. We had that in common, at least. So, if I ask you to take me back to Calicto, you will? I tested.
Do you want to go back?
I have to, I replied. Would it be so wrong to let the marshal have a little information? He had connections in law enforcement. He might be able to use those connections to help me get inside Archon. I'd always worked alone. It was safer that way. But the situation with Archon and Crater's faction, those walls were closing in. I was good at what I did. The marks painting my skin proved it. But the warfae was better than me. They always had been in the end. I have a friend, I explained, mirroring Kali's crossed arms. He's in trouble.
Oh, you do have friends. Do you attack them with your whip too?
I gave him a dry look. Kali was a long way from being a friend. He was taken.
Is that why you're running?
I'm running so I can regroup off Calicto and hit back twice as hard. He scanned my expression with a hard one of his own.
Figured as much. You have half the Halow system out to kill or capture you, and you're going to charge back in to save a friend?
He scratched his chin and briefly averted his gaze.
He must be some friend.
He is. He couldn't know Sota was an AI, and it didn't matter anyway. To me, Sota was real enough.
You're going to get yourself killed.
I offered him a slice of a smile. You don't know me. You have no idea what I can do.
I have an idea, all right.
His gaze slid to the whip. I huffed a laugh. Whatever. This man couldn't know me. Some days, I didn't even know myself. So, why am I here, Marshal? What do you want from me? You aren't helping me because you're a nice guy. You want something, and apparently, it's not the money.
Do I look like I need the V?
He spread his hands. He didn't, but the rich always wanted more. Then why? He chewed on his words before replying.
You're right. I'm not a nice guy. Not even close. And I do want something from you.
He tilted his head and appraised me from head to toe. Beneath the weight of his unblinking gaze, my heart picked up its pace and an unexpected flickering shortened my breath. He was quick and intelligent, and a mystery. And I'd always had a weakness for anyone with enough skills to outmaneuver me. It didn't happen often. Apparently done with his visual inspection, he stood and strode across the room toward me. Instincts warned me to back off and put space between us to swing the whip if I needed to, but I stood my ground. At the last step, he veered to my right to lean against the counter beside me.
Crater was assassinated, but not by you. Do you know how I know that?
No, but you can help me by telling Crater's men to back off. If they rescind the bounty, that would give me room to breathe. He stood too close. He wasn't armed, although I hadn't seen him replace the knife, but it didn't matter. He radiated threat.
They don't listen to the law, so they won't listen to me. Besides, Crater's death isn't the real problem here.
Isn't it?
Don't play coy, Lasota. It doesn't suit you.
My little smile died. So, tell me what really happened, smartass.
Witness reports claim the entire left-hand side of Crater's face exploded. The autopsy confirmed those reports. A high-powered projectile struck Crater behind his right ear, entering his skull from behind. Hence why half his face was missing. You stood in front of Crater the whole time you were delivering a message. You didn't kill him.
Killy towed open a hidden storage unit concealed beneath the counter and picked up a black bag from inside. He dumped it on the countertop and opened it, revealing the smooth metallic sheen of the warfae's rifle. It had to be the same gun. Why was it in a bag in Killy's cupboard and not some secure police HQ somewhere? Isn't that evidence? I asked.
You recognize it?
Yes, I admitted. Killy already knew I would. My attempt to lie my way around the curious Marshal wasn't working. I would need another angle of attack.
Are you going to explain how?
I lifted my gaze and looked him in the eye. Is this an interrogation? That earned me a snarl.
Right here, right now, I'm not a lawman. I stopped being a lawman when I stole an authority shuttle and brought you to my home. I don't know you, but I brought you here to keep the small army of bounty hunters and assassins from finding you. As thanks, you attack and threaten me right after I bought you lunch. So, how about you try trusting me? Just for a little while? You can go back to trying to kill me once we're done.
He made a good argument. Damn him. I found the rifle in the construction site across the plaza from Crater's restaurant.
Did you see the shooter?
No. The lie twisted inside me.
That's not surprising.
Wasn't it? Why?
Does anything strike you as odd about this weapon?
I scanned it again, remembering Soda's words. It was a highly modified rifle, likely charged with fey magic when in use. If I told the Marshal that, he'd think I was insane. Unless he was testing the waters for information he'd already assumed. Guns aren't really my thing. I much prefer whips. He ran his hand along the barrel, fingers trembling.
Its design is unusual. Heavily modified from the original in a way that doesn't make sense. Unless there's an element missing.
What element? Magic, of course.
I'm not sure.
He again scratched his chin, the gesture a nervous tell.
Tech and magic combined? Like your whip, perhaps?
Good call. My whip was exactly like the rifle, and equally rare. Do you think the shooter left it there to further implicate me? I asked, thoughts spiraling. If I told him the truth, not all of it, just enough to stop the questions, he could help. He already suspected something, hence all the questions. Marshal Kelly would make a useful ally.
I think someone disturbed him before he could dismantle it. He needed a quick getaway. This rifle would have slowed him down.
Yes, it would have. And perhaps then I might have caught the Fae. Larson, unlikely his real name, had left the rifle behind, thinking nobody would know what it was. They certainly wouldn't suspect it was Fae-crafted. Maybe I disturbed him. My voice sounded distant, lost behind the history crowding my head. He turned, sharp eyes scouring my face for clues, for lies, for all the things he knew I was hiding.
If we track down the killer, you're off the hook.
I'd moved closer while looking in Kelly's bag, and now, when I looked up, flecks of hazel darkened the marshal's green eyes, and the hint of something more lurked behind his gaze. Oh, I knew exactly where the shooter was. Right in the heart of Calicto, sitting on his oak throne as the head of Archon. Was this the right time to tell Kelly? If he didn't believe me, he might laugh me off. But if he did... Unfortunately, if he believed me, that knowledge would likely get him killed. Kelly was a lawman. He would be obliged to investigate. The warfae would kill him. I didn't know Kelly well, but I didn't want to see him tortured and killed just because I didn't think I could get Sota back alone. And I needed help. Tell me why you're helping me and I'll tell you everything, I said.
Everything?
All of it.
Tell me everything first, and I'll tell you why I'm helping you.
His lips twitched, and humor brightened his eyes. The itch to punch him twitched my fingers. This isn't funny, Marshal. There are more lives at stake than you can imagine. This goes way beyond one man's assassination. What I'm about to tell you could change the way you see the world, change everything you know. He arched an eyebrow.
Do I need to sit down?
My glare darkened. If you won't take me seriously, then take me back to Calicto.
Where you'll be shot dead before you leave the dock.
He closed the bag and hid it beneath the counter again.
You've been alone a long time, Kesh Lasota. You don't need to be alone any longer. Tell me what you are running from. Let me help you.
What was I running from? Another life. Another girl. Just like me. She lived in my memories and in Sota's databanks. She was a slave, a killer, a hero to a people that weren't hers. She was everything Kesh Lasota was not. I swallowed and touched the ghost of an old scar on my neck, long ago surgically removed. The Fae aren't gone. Just saying the words felt like laying landmines. Like any second, the truth would explode, killing me, the past, and the Marshal too. The Marshal was no longer laughing. The beast behind his glare stirred, lifting the fine hairs on the back of my neck. A flicker of fear darted through my chest, tightening old instincts. My whip was close, but so was Kelly.
I know,
He said, grinding out the words.
That's why I'm helping you.
Chapter 9. I told Kelly about the message, about Sota's 18 seconds, about the Fae I'd failed to chase down. He listened without interrupting. I told him about Larson, about Archon, and about Mary. The more I told him, the more I wanted to spill all my secrets to this man I hardly knew. But some secrets were too dangerous to spill. When I was done, hours had passed and my voice had grown hoarse. Marshal Kelly now knew everything there was to know about the messenger, Kesh Lasota. He poured 2 drinks and set them on the table between us. The apartment lights were still dimmed, and from outside, the occasional flare of light would wash across us both, highlighting Kelly's thoughtful expression. I picked up my glass, folded my legs under me on the couch opposite the Marshal's, and waited for him to say something. I didn't even care about the silence. I liked it, in fact. Air filters hummed, There was no clanging or groaning from stacked containers, no shouts from too close neighbors. For the first time in a long time, I almost felt safe. Almost. But a very real and obvious threat existed here. The marshal. I'd told him what he wanted to know. Now all I had to do was wait and see what he did with that information. What he did with me. He leaned forward and picked up his drink, but he saw me watching and lowered the glass.
Crater met with a marshal from my station. A day later, Crater's dead.
Now he took a drink, downing the contents in one.
The marshal he met with is missing.
You think Crater implicated Archon in something? He swallowed.
There have been other events during the past year. Marshals quitting for no reason. Some out-of-character incidents. I don't know who to trust.
I knew exactly how he felt. But what made you think any of this was Fae-related?
You mean besides the rifle, which is clearly modified for Fae use?
He leaned back and stared into the middle distance, perhaps seeing the past in the room with us.
I told you I wasn't always a marshal. I did some mercenary work. And before that,
The corner of his mouth twitched.
let's just say you and I have more in common than you would believe.
I doubted that. If he knew what I was, he'd probably kill me without blinking, or try to.
There's someone who can help us. I think... well, he's...
Kelly winced. Something in those memories was obviously unpleasant.
he's a Fae expert. If we tell him what we know, he'll tell us whether it's possible. Might even help us...
Help us do what, exactly?
stop them.
I just want soda back. I took a drink to moisten my suddenly dry mouth. Stop the Fae? No. One messenger and a marshal wouldn't be enough to stop them, if they planned on returning.
I figured you were many things, but not a coward.
He smiled, testing me. If he meant his accusation to hurt, he had me all wrong. I'm just a messenger. What can I do? If you want to get yourself killed, go right ahead.
Just a messenger?
He stood, set his drink down, and retrieved his coat.
Right. Of course you are. A messenger who escaped a warfae and carries a magic-enhanced whip. That's not all you are, is it?
He collected my coat and stood over me, holding the coat out.
But sure, I'll play along with your little fantasy. For now.
Fantasy? I snatched my coat and tugged it on. Where are we going?
To get answers.
A black rock loomed in the shuttle window, growing larger by the second, until it swamped the screen, blotting out everything else. Up close, it glittered with antennae and surveillance masts. We approached a beam jutting from the surface, the dock. What is that place? I asked. Killy adjusted the shuttle, keeping us level with a line of green indicator buoys.
A prison.
The rock had to be at least 50 miles across and just as deep. Killy had told me this place didn't appear on any official chart. Looking at the barren, isolated rock, I asked myself what crimes someone would have to commit to be sent here. How many people do they keep in there?
1.
1? All that prison for one prisoner?
Yeah.
Killy adjusted the shuttle's flight, bringing us closer to the dock's mouth. And this one prisoner is your source? I tried and failed to keep the alarm out of my voice.
I didn't say it would be easy to get answers.
Once we had docked, Killy flashed his badge and guards waved us into the narrow rock-lined tunnels. The marshal asked that we not walk through the scanners, and reluctantly, after a few V-coins changed hands, he got his wish. He chatted with them, all small talk and easy smiles. Everyone recognized Marshal Killy. Finally, after our confusing parade of small talk between chamber after chamber, we were escorted into an enormous space. The heavy door clanged shut, sealing us inside a chamber so big the glow from the lights didn't touch the walls. Every boot scuff or rustle of clothing was eaten by the emptiness. At the cavern's center, lit from all corners by powerful floodlights, stood a container-sized, metal-lined glass cage. And inside, head bowed, long, fine silver hair spilling over one shoulder, stood a male fae. I froze, boots glued to the floor. 1,000 memories came crashing in. He looked exactly the way I remembered the fae to be. He even wore the tan leather garments of most scouts, cladding his body from neck to toe. They didn't wear armor, relying instead on speed and agility to outmaneuver their enemies. It made them vulnerable up close, but only if you survived getting within melee range. But this one didn't look vulnerable. Kelly approached the glass and metal-framed wall. It's not enough. The cage, this prison, not enough. The security, the isolation, the whole damn rock, it wasn't enough to hold him. And yet, there he was. Trapped. Slowly, he lifted his head. Violet eyes shone from behind his silvery bangs.
Hello, Marshal.
The voice was everything I loathed. Honey and silk, a sweetness so seductive it hurt to hear it. Instincts clawed at me to run and keep on running to the far corners of the 3 systems. But another part of me, a stronger, defiant part, wanted to move closer, to hear that voice again, to let his luscious tone wash over me, through me. I measured my breathing, slowly in, slowly out, and calmed my thoughts. This was his prison, not mine.
Talon?
Khalid greeted. He stopped about a foot from the glass and tucked both hands casually into his pockets, his demeanor that of someone who had dropped by to visit an old friend.
It has been a long time since your last visit,
Talon commented, hiding an accusation beneath those words.
Has it? I hadn't noticed.
The fae's right eyebrow twitched. The movement was tiny. Most would have missed it completely, but I knew what I was looking for. The marshal's words had hurt him. This fae cared. Talon leaned outward and peered around the marshal's shoulder. His intense gaze pierced the shadows, spearing into me.
You have brought me a guest.
Kelly turned, surprised to see me rooted to the floor only a few steps inside the room.
Kesh?
No, don't tell him any more. Not my name, not any of it. If I had known Kelly's source was a fae, I wouldn't have come. The second I stepped into the light, I'd be exposed. Would he know? The marks painting my skin itched. Would he recognize me? I didn't recall him or his name, but there had been so many fae, and my name was notorious among them. Not Kesh's name. My other name. But I wouldn't run, not from him. I briefly touched my neck, feeling the ghost of cool metal. He was caged. I was free. I willed my feet to move forward and plastered a blank expression on my face.
Ah.
The fae said. The smooth sound unwound me.
Marshal Kelly, would you be so kind as to leave us alone?
Kelly chuckled.
That's not happening, Talon.
The fae cut him a look so deadly, I was surprised it didn't slice through the cage. Unfazed, Kelly rapped his knuckles on the glass.
Remember who put you here. How could I forget?
Had Kelly captured this fae? I swallowed a hard knot in my throat and stopped beside Kelly. The fae's eyes bored into mine, burrowing deep into my soul and digging up all the gems of my past. Had he once seen me painted with the blood? Had he roared along with the thousands of others who had reveled in their entertainment? He didn't look the type to lose his mind over bloodlust, but they never did. The fae's smile held secrets. He glanced at Kali but didn't seem inclined to speak what was on his mind. He knows. He knows. He knows. My heart beat out the fear. Talon dragged his gaze over me, slow and steady.
Thief.
I am no thief. But I understood why he would think so. He likely sensed the low magical throb I carried with me. His eyes narrowed, gaze piercing deeper.
What do you want?
He asked, looking directly at me. I was here. It was done. And if there were consequences, I would deal with them. But right now, I needed answers. What do you know about Fae adopting tech? He waited a few beats, his thoughts probably lingering on how I carried Fae magic.
We're averse to using tech,
He said.
It pains us, as you know. But in extreme circumstances, we'll adopt it, briefly, if we must.
Is it possible for a Fae to live in a tech-advanced society? He flicked a hand, dismissing the suggestion.
Unlikely. For a day or two, perhaps. No more.
I looked again at his surroundings, his cell, crisscrossed with metal, the tech observing from hidden corners, the array of tech I had seen on the way in. The prison was encased in tech. How was this Fae even coherent? Intelligence sparkled in his eyes.
You're wondering how I have survived?
Talon asked.
I've been here a very, very long time. Besides living, my only other option is death, and I am not ready to meet the hunt just yet.
He must be in agony. Every breath, every movement must hurt. Then, isn't it correct that a Fae exposed to tech over a long period of time could live in a tech-advanced society? Like you are here?
Live? No. Survive?
He smiled at my question, almost as though it pleased him to have me ask it.
This
He stepped back from the glass, the movement silent.
was not voluntary.
But if he or she were exposed to tech slowly, over many years, they might build up a resistance? The Fae blinked, possibly for the first time since we had entered.
It is possible, but unheard of. It would take many years of voluntary exposure to human tech, and a great deal of pain.
So, Larson had slipped under the radar over years. Centuries? How long have you been here? I asked.
It has been 342 years since the marshal detained me.
Killy stiffened. Talon had revealed too much, and the Fae's smile proved it. I blinked, careful to school my features. The marshal was how old? I stared ahead, refusing to glance at Killy despite needing to see his reaction. Talon's soft smile had probably lured hundreds of humans to their deaths over the years. Here, he was using it against Killy. He knew he'd given something away. From my time behind bars, I knew such slights against a jailer, small as they were, amounted to huge victories. You endure pain daily? I asked, quieter now.
I do.
To survive, he had built up an immunity to tech. If he'd done it, others might have as well. Others like Larson. It would have taken time during which the Fae had fallen into myth and legend. Human generations. But the Fae were nothing if not patient. Long-lived, what was a few hundred years of pain?
Why do you ask? Kesh.
A shudder tracked its way down my spine. There's
No reason.
Killy interrupted. The Fae studied us. His silvery hair moved beneath the light like liquid mercury. For someone caged for over 300 years, he looked remarkably well. We studied each other. What family was he from, I wondered? Was he a social Fae, a worker, or was he in service to the court? None of the answers mattered. But a Fae locked away so far from home was a sight I'd never expected to see. It was like catching a mythical creature in a jar. It shouldn't have been possible. He moved closer to the glass and tilted his head. His violet eyes darted as he studied me.
What are you?
I glanced at Kali and saw the marshal raise an eyebrow. He had asked me the same. "A messenger," I replied.
No. You have the magic of my kind. I sensed it the moment you entered. You've spent time with us. A long time.
He touched his neck, and before I could stop myself, I had mirrored the gesture. I dropped my hand, but the flash of recognition in his eyes told me he understood.
I see.
His smile grew predatory, and this time, when he looked at Kali, there was a knowing brightness in his eyes and a smirk tugging at his lips.
Do you trust your companion, Marshal? We're done here.
Kali strode toward the door, leaving me alone, facing the Fae.
I know you.
Talon pressed a hand against the glass. His flesh bubbled and sizzled, but he leaned in closer, ignoring the burn.
You have the power to free me from this prison. Do it. Do it now, and I will forever be in your debt.
My heart raced too hard, tightening my chest. I can't.
You can.
Closer still, his beautiful eyes shone alarmingly with tears. In all the years I had spent with them, I had never once seen a Fae cry. A single clear droplet skipped down his pale cheek.
Do this one thing, and I will be yours.
There was magic in those words, a promise, a curse, and my human heart ached for it.
Kesh!
Kelly snapped.
Get away from him!
I had loved them once, loved them like I was one of them, and this one, lost to his people, lost to his world, captured for centuries. Like me, he had been caged. I pressed my hand to the glass, over where the metal-infused screen scorched his palm.
I know you, sorrow. Free me, and I will be yours.
He dropped to one knee, closed his burnt hand into a fist, pressed it against his heart, and bowed his head.
Allow me to serve you.
Kelly grabbed my arm and dragged me toward the door. The Fae stayed bowed, his words circling inside my head.
Allow me to serve you. Don't listen to him.
Kelly hissed.
Words are the only weapons he has left.
Talon's tear-filled offer haunted me, long after the prison door had slammed shut. Chapter 10. Marshal Kali jabbed at the flight controls, disengaging the shuttle from the prison dock. If he exerted any more force, he'd push his fingers through the console. I gripped the back of the adjacent flight chair. I couldn't bring myself to sit down and strap in, not with Talon's offer still ringing in my ears.
Allow me to serve you.
If I hadn't dug my fingers into the chair, Kelly would have noticed them trembling. The dangerous kind of anger burned like acid in my veins. It was a trick. No Fae would ever serve a Saru. They didn't know how to bow to anyone but their sovereign. And even then, it was begrudgingly.
Are you going to demand I take you back to Calicto?
Kelly asked gruffly, his attention on piloting. He had said he wasn't keeping me against my will, but walking back into Calicto without a plan would get me killed. One Fae at the head of Archon and another in prison? A day ago, I would have laughed at the thought. If there were 2 Fae in Halow, there might be more. I couldn't tackle more alone. My knuckles had bleached white. I loosened my grip on the chair. You took me to a Fae, I said, training my voice to hide everything boiling inside me.
You wouldn't have gone had I warned you.
Why? Why had he done this? All we had learned from Talon was that a Fae may deliberately build up a resistance to tech. I already knew it was possible, and now so did Kali. But that meeting had been about more than that. An ache throbbed through my jaw, radiating from my clenched teeth. You wanted to see how he would react to me. You didn't just want answers about Larson. You wanted answers about me. Kali maneuvered the shuttle backward, away from the dock. The engines grumbled, vibrating through the floor. The marshal didn't reply. Heated tensions simmered around him. It didn't matter. He'd shown his true colors and used me.
Sit down,
He ordered. I ignored him.
Sit the fuck down,
He growled. The sound raised the fine hairs on my arms. Warring instincts spiked my veins with adrenaline. He turned his head to finally look at me. Whatever he saw in my face eased some of his fury. He sighed and faced ahead, rolling his shoulders to work out the frustration.
Would you please sit while we maneuver away from the dock? It's safer.
I didn't move. It wasn't about getting help at all. It was about you trying to figure me out.
Can you blame me? You're not Fae, but you wield their magic. What am I supposed to think?
You were going to take me in,
I was,
he admitted, still working the shuttle's controls.
until those intruders attacked you. They would have killed us both. That's when things got interesting. Talon's reaction to you confirmed it.
Confirmed what?
You're someone important to them.
A dry, humorless laugh barked free. No, that's definitely not the case. He flinched.
Whatever he told you, don't listen. It's misdirection. The first prison they had him in, he turned the entire staff against one another in 3 weeks. Now he's isolated. For everyone's safety. But I guess you know exactly how to handle a Fae, right?
So do you, Marshal. I stared ahead at the blackness we cruised through.
I know you.
Talon couldn't know me. He had been in prison too long to know me. Maybe he hadn't meant it literally. He knew I had his people's magic. He knew I was Saru. In his lofty Fae mind, that was probably all he needed to know. I touched my neck, expecting to find the cool touch of iron, but only found my skin, soft and warm.
You have the power to free me from this prison. Allow me to serve you.
Their word bound them, and Talon's words had been explicit. He couldn't know me. He couldn't know what I'd done. But he could be mine, and that was no small thing. The thought alone set my pulse racing. The times I dreamed of being equal among them, being loved for the right reasons, not the wrong ones. Talon couldn't make me Fae, but having him beholden to me, his power as my own, his strength coursing through my veins. To a Saru, there was nothing more seductive. Not even freedom. Better to push it aside for now. Larson was the priority. Did you get your answers about me, Marshal? He glanced over. I expected to see a triumphant smile on his face, but didn't get that at all. If anything, the lines around his mouth made him appear tired.
Some, and a whole lot more questions.
I kept my eyes on the nothingness ahead of us. I had questions too, like how the Marshal had captured a Fae some 300 years ago. You once hunted the Fae?
No.
His quiet dragged on for so long after his denial that when he next spoke, his soft words bore the terrible weight of their meaning.
They hunted my kind. To extinction.
The ride back to Juneau passed in silence. I left Kali to stew in his apartment on everything he'd learned from my encounter with his prisoner, and ventured into Juneau proper. Curved glass revealed the station's spine and the catwalks wrapped around it, each one like ribs around the central cavity. Walking to the edge and pressing my hands against the glass, I peered down into the station's cavernous middle until a hot wash of vertigo forced me back. So much glass and metal. Dots of color streamed along the transparent ribs. Corridors. People. Hundreds of them. Like ants in a hill. I looked up, following the central cavity to a black dome pricked by starlight. Not ants, more like goldfish in a bowl. Juneau was so vast and beautiful. Typical of human tech, but so fragile. Juneau was exactly the kind of place the Fae despised. Doesn't matter. None of this matters. Using my coat's cloaking abilities, I spun myself an illusion to blend in, exploiting the drab colors and altering my facial features enough to fool any surveillance that got lucky and noticed me among the crowds. Archon may not be watching this far away from Calicto, but their tech was here. I entered an elevator and rode it down a few levels alongside 50 or so others. All were well-dressed and wealthy. They chatted about nonsense, family, work, travel. All the mundane things people shared when they came together. I listened, absorbing their accents so that when I needed to speak, I would blend in. Kelly had told me where to find the parts I needed. He hadn't asked what they were for, although I'd seen in his eyes that he'd wanted to. He had wanted to ask about many things. I had no intention of telling him anything he didn't need to know. Once Larson was dealt with, I would disappear from the marshal's life. Better for him to always wonder about the girl with her illusions. If he knew what those illusions covered, his sense of honor would force him to act. So I would slip away, never to be seen again, and leave the marshal to his crusade against the Fae. It was the only way we would both survive. The store Kali had directed me to glittered with electronic components. I dulled my magic and stepped inside. Many items on display cost more than what I earned as a messenger, and some also appeared to be illegally modified. But like the marshal had said, there was no law this far outside Halow's main systems. I collected a few items I needed and some I didn't. Soda would appreciate a few upgrades. It's always best to keep a drone capable of microwaving your bones to ash inside your own skin happy. After purchasing the components, I left the store and spotted the marshal rising from a bench. How had he seen through my illusion? I ignored him and slipped into the crowd. Sure enough, his reflection in the store windows confirmed he had fallen into step behind me. I had planned to return to his place, but now I wanted to know how far the marshal's tracking abilities went. Playing cat and mouse would have been easy with Soda, but I hadn't always had the drone. Dusting off old skills, I picked up my pace, weaving faster through the shoppers. Once I had a good distance between us, I veered into a restaurant, asked after the washroom, and slipped inside. In seconds, I'd switched my appearance, this time draping myself in male attire. The illusion would hold as long as nobody touched me. The marshal wouldn't spot the change without biotech. I left the restaurant and eased into a swaggering pace, nothing like Kesh Lasota's purposeful stride. Juno's smooth, shiny surfaces highlighted the reflections of those around me, and so far, the marshal wasn't among them. Good. Knowing how to give him the slip may come in useful. When I returned to his apartment, he was sprawled on his couch, reading from his personal palm-sized screen as though he'd been there all along.
Did you get everything you need?
The little smile he wore held a smug edge. I smiled back. I did. I set my box of components down on the floor, the easiest place to spread all the tiny circuitry, and set to work. I hadn't been born to tech like most humans outside of fairy. So, when I first encountered the strange metal devices with little electronic minds of their own, I'd been fascinated by their construction. Fascinated enough to strip down stolen components and rebuild them into something new. I'd been punished time and time again, but the lashings didn't matter. What was more pain to a creature like me, surrounded by pain and bloodshed? But tech, that was something else. In my cell, my world so small I counted it in steps, the wonder of tech had been the real magic, not the intangible Fae magic. Tech was a whole other world filled with possibility. I'd created new machines, new tech. Those tech trinkets had saved my life 100 times over, and condemned it. Here. I held out a black device no larger than a thumbnail. It's the best I can do with what I have here. The marshal had joined me on the floor some time ago to watch me dismantle the circuitry from the pieces I'd purchased and solder them into something else entirely. He held out his hand. I dropped the comms into his palm and picked up its twin.
What is it?
He asked, studying it closely. Put it behind your ear, under your hair, and against your skin. He frowned like I'd told him to eat it, reluctantly picked it up and eyed it between his finger and thumb.
Where's the power source?
It's you.
Me?
A human body can generate anywhere between 100 and 2,000 watts. You aren't human, but your physique suggests you have a high energy output. The humor in his eyes told me he liked that I'd noticed his physique.
Will it burrow into my brain and hide behind my eyes?
He asked, not entirely joking. What? There was military tech capable of exactly that. But I certainly wouldn't force such a thing on someone. He was smiling again like he knew he'd had me. Even someone as annoying as Kelly. The spark of annoyance quickly faded, replaced by an even more infuriating urge to laugh with him. Just put it on. Sitting up, he pressed the comms behind his ear. I did the same with mine and rolled my jaw to activate it. Now can you hear me? He winced and plucked it off.
Can you do something about the volume?
The marshal had acute hearing. Interesting. I took it off him, made some adjustments, and handed it back. That should be more bearable. It's low-tech, so Archon's scanners shouldn't pick it up. They don't scan for basic systems like this. If they did, they'd pick up all manner of electronic devices people carry with them. Archon is looking for weapons, not hearing aids.
What's the distance?
He asked. His voice doubled up as a whisper behind my ear. A few miles, but that will depend on Archon's systems. There are likely sections of the building where the comms won't work at all, but you'll see signs marking those restricted areas as communications dead zones. I showed him how to roll his jaw to turn the comms on and off. The devices were only temporary, unlike my link to Soda, but it would allow Kelly and me to communicate inside Archon. Kelly helped tidy away the spare parts, collecting them into a pile on his kitchen countertop. You just have to get me inside, I said. Tell them you're there to investigate the recent disturbance, just doing your job. Once in, make your way to any of the rear windows or doors and I'll find you. You can open them from the inside. I'll scramble the surveillance and locks. He nodded and picked up a cylinder around the size of his little finger and teased it between his fingers.
What else can you make?
Anything, given enough time and the right equipment. I offered him my hand, palm up. Kelly dropped the cylinder into it and watched as I collected a few more items, worked them together, and finally lifted the electronic stick man to my lips and blew a little fey magic into it. I set the little electronic toy down on the counter and watched him climb onto wobbly metallic legs. Kelly tilted his head and watched the toy man wobble about, then poked him. The toy staggered but stayed upright, and then he turned toward Kelly and lifted his wiry arm. Kelly pushed the toy again.
Ah!
Sparks jumped to Kelly, eliciting a hiss from the marshal's lips. He shook his hand out.
What was that?
I guess he doesn't much like you.
He's alive?
He asked carefully, aware of how absurd it sounded. He is.
But you just made it right there. How is that possible?
He paused, realizing I'd used magic to bring the tech to life. The same as my whip. The same as the Fey assassin's gun. The same as Soda, though the marshal didn't know that. All my tech was alive with Fey magic, some more than others. As the marshal understood, the toy electronic man slumped forward and stopped moving. His magic, what little I'd given him, had burned out. It's fleeting, especially so far from fairy. I pressed my lips together, wishing I hadn't said the name, wishing I hadn't made the little man and seen the delight in the marshal's eyes. It was too late. I had said too much. I lifted my head and caught Kelly's odd expression. The marshal knew. He knew exactly why I didn't behave like a human. He knew where I came from, knew why the imprisoned Fae had talked to me the way he had, knew how I could animate soulless objects.
You lived among them,
he said. I swallowed. If you mean people in the sinks, sure I did. My attempt to cover up the truth sounded pathetic and desperate.
You're not part of the sinks.
His voice quickened, his thoughts solidifying.
You just hide out there, hiding from the proto-Fae. You were born on fairy.
I turned away and crossed the room, collecting my coat. All my lies had begun to unravel. No. More lies. He was too close to the truth. Why couldn't he stop asking questions? In 5 years, nobody had cared enough to ask me anything. And here he was, relentlessly digging.
How did you escape? How did you get here? Defense drones beyond the debris zone would have shot down any ship.
He came around the kitchen counter, strides driving his questions home.
What are you?
I don't know what you're talking about. Now let's get back to Calicto. Tugging my coat on, I stopped by the airlock doors, ignoring my pounding heart. He wouldn't drop this. Someone like Kali never did. He would poke and push until the truth pushed back. I would have to deal with him. Damn it, I didn't want that. I watched him bear down on me. I didn't want to hurt him.
Nobody leaves Ferry. Certainly no human.
He stopped, too close. His words burned like accusations. I lifted my chin and faced him. The marshal's keen mind worked. His questions rallied, and his answers jostled. And there, that moment on his face when he knew it all, or suspected. His eyes widened and his lips parted.
You're her.
My knuckles met his face with a sickening crunch. Pain bloomed up my arm, and Marshal Kali collapsed into a heap, adding a nasty-sounding crack to the skull. I stepped over his motionless body and pressed my fingers to his neck, assuming he had a pulse where most humans did. His blood beat hot and fast beneath my touch. His eyelashes fluttered, but his eyes stayed closed. Stay down, Marshal. I sighed and rested my palm against his warm cheek. In all this time, nobody cared enough to ask the right questions, and yet, you figured it out in 2 days. I brushed my thumb against his lips, finding them temptingly soft. To keep my secret, I should kill him, close my hand around his neck and squeeze. I lowered my hand, brushing across his jaw and down under his chin. It wasn't as though I hadn't killed before, but this lonely man with all his questions, this man who had saved me twice already, I didn't want to kill him. Nobody will believe him anyway. Bunching up his coat, I ran my fingers through his hair, checking for any serious damage, and tucked the coat under his head. His marshal's star winked accusingly. I unclipped it and shoved it into one of my coat's many pockets. Sorry, Kali. This way you get to live. The first airlock door whooshed open under my touch, and within minutes, I was seated behind the shuttle's controls with only the most basic of notions for how to pilot it. I'd watched the marshal closely. All I had to do was uncouple and pull away from the dock. The shuttle's autopilot would do much of it. How hard could it be? Chapter 11. As it turned out, piloting a shuttle was as difficult as you'd imagine. But they were built like Colossus tech, so a few knocks here and there at slow speed did little damage. Thankfully. Anyway, I was out of options. Taking the shuttle would keep Kali off my back. By the time he came to, got himself another ride and tried to catch up, I'd be back on Calicto, walking into Archon, with his marshal's badge giving me an all-access pass. Hopefully, he'd drop any heroic notions of stopping me and shrug the entire encounter off as a lucky escape. Right. Calicto's Port Authority guided the shuttle into its dock, and after a few scrapes and bumps, I got the vessel coupled to the airlock. With my mail illusion spun and the marshal's badge opening doors as though it were a magical key, immigration was a breeze, and within an hour of landing on Calicto, I was approaching Archon's main entrance. This time, I knew exactly what I was walking into. My whip was coiled warm and snug against my leg, well within the aura of invisibility I naturally threw off. With the marshal's badge, I should be able to get into the depths of Archon without raising suspicion.
I should be grateful you didn't kill me when you had the chance.
Kali whispered into my ear. I stopped and turned on the spot, and then I remembered the comms device behind my ear. Damn it! Reaching the top of Archon's steps, I veered to the side of the entrance and leaned against the wall, keeping my head bowed. My ocular map showed the web of streets wrapped around Archon's HQ. Kali could be minutes away. The lawman was proving to be an enormous pain in my ass. How's your head? I asked, keeping my voice low. People came and went from Archon's steps. None of them wore the marshal's long coat. If he was watching the entrance, he would probably scan right over my male appearance, not realizing who was inside.
How many did you kill?
His voice whispered through the comm link, losing none of its menace. I smiled to myself. It wasn't a pleasant smile, and I wasn't even sure why I wore it, but it seemed fitting. He thought he knew me. All he knew, if he had guessed right, was my reputation. It might even help me.
I now understand why you won't fight this Fae. He doesn't know who you are. What would happen if he did?
The smile fell from my lips. You won't tell him, I replied, sounding more confident than I felt. You hate the Fae as much as I do.
Do you hate them?
Quiet crackled.
Or do you love them?
Damn him. Damn him to the debris zone and back again. Your questions will get you killed, Marshal.
Questions are my job, Wraithmaker.
I tore the comms device off and dropped it into my coat pocket. I was done with the Marshal and his stupid questions. The man was a distraction, and a dangerous one. Archon's foyer hadn't changed in the time I'd been away. Staff bustled about. This was just another day working for the Halow system's largest surveillance firm and the charming Istvan Larsen. And as far as anyone was concerned, today was just another day for the Marshal I was pretending to be. Kelly carved through the people to my right, his gaze locked on mine, leaving no doubt he knew exactly who I was despite the illusion. I sucked in a breath, careful to keep my composure. There was no point in running. It would just draw more attention to us, and I wasn't leaving without Soda. How had he found me? Kelly held out his hand.
You have something of mine.
Damn it. Why did he have to be so damn good at his job? How did he even track me? Unless he didn't use visual clues. One of his other senses? Smell, perhaps? I pulled his badge from my pocket and dumped it into his hand. He appeared fully healed. I should have hit him harder. What now? I asked. He blinked, probably because my voice was still female while the rest of me looked male.
Now we carry on with the plan. I get you inside, but I'm coming with you to find your so-called friend.
Because he didn't trust I even had a friend worth saving. Fine. If he wanted to get himself killed, it would save me the trouble. We walked to one of the reception desks, and Marshal Kelly did his lawman thing, flashing his badge and saying all the right things to get us inside, just like we'd planned. That got us through the front line. But where we wanted to go, a row of security scanners waited, the ones my original plan had me avoiding. I had no idea how Archon's scanners would react to my presence, or if they would react at all. If they were anything like craters, they'd let me pass right on through. Down a long, narrow corridor, the veil of scanners appeared to be automated. Others ahead of us walked through as though merely passing through a doorway. I didn't slow, didn't hesitate, and stepped into the invisible net of scanners, passing through unnoticed. I am a ghost. Archon was still so confident that someone like me was a myth. I puffed out a sigh. This would be simple, just so long as... An alarm barked. Please wait. Personnel will arrive shortly, a synthesized voice announced. I turned, already several strides ahead. The scanners had flagged Kali as a possible threat. He waved me on and hung back, looking bored as though this was all routine. A door to my left opened as I strode by. An armed guard emerged. I heard him tell Kali to present his identification. Once I was out of earshot, I reapplied the comms device and listened in to Kali being questioned about his reasons for visiting. Still hidden inside my illusion, I continued with all the confidence of someone who had every right to be wandering Archon's corridors. I passed by staff unnoticed and kept going. It seemed unlikely that Archon's scanners would miss me. Sure, I usually passed through these types of security systems unnoticed, but Larsen knew my tricks. If he had any sense, he would have recalibrated those scanners to look for anything unusual, like the vacant space I occupied. Wraithmaker. I winced, shook off the name Kali had dredged up from my past, and walked with renewed vigor. I didn't know much about where Archon's labs were, but I knew the warfae had wanted Soda alive. He'd stolen Soda's docking station. My drone had to be here, somewhere. The next set of scanners let me pass through unchecked. I entered an elevator, hit the button for research and development, and felt the scanners run their electronic lasers through me. Soda. I opened the mental link between us and called down it. If he was close and powered up, he should hear me.
Kesh, where are you?
Khalif's thin whisper sounded through my comms, distracting me. On my way to research and development. A few seconds passed, and this time, when Khalif spoke, interference crackled.
Larson is... The move. Told me to wait. There's a delay. He might know...
The link cut off. I was too deep to pull out.
I'm coming after you,
Khalif announced. Don't be a fool, I whispered back. Get out of here. The elevator doors opened, revealing a hive of activity inside a maze of glass corridors. Every office was exposed, with everyone visible at their workstations. All anyone had to do was look up to spot me. I strode on, projecting a 100% absolutely definitely supposed to be here attitude. A sweetness, floral and tempting, circulated in the air. I knew it well, having grown up surrounded by the intoxicating lure of fairy magic. My power tingled across my skin and hummed through the coiled whip. I couldn't see any obvious source of the sensation, but a fae was here or nearby. Hardly surprising. Whatever Larson was doing inside Archon wasn't my problem. Get the job done and get out. I'd be invisible again soon. Soda, I mentally called through our link. Help me find you. The link buzzed with life signs, and my breath hitched. My drone was close. My ocular map blinked into my vision, seemingly of its own accord. My stride tripped. I pushed forward, heartbeat thudding too loudly in my ears. A single red dot blinked in my vision, over the floor plan of the building. Soda. It had to be. He was down another level, deeper still inside Archon, but so close.
Kesh!
Kelly's voice cracked through the comms.
Don't!
I'm sorry, Marshal. Sorry for a lot of things. Perhaps the apology would mean more once all this was over. Kelly said something too softly for me to hear. The deeper into Archon I went, the more the connection failed. Hopefully, he would heed my advice and leave. Our original plan had us meeting up later. Knowing who I was, he probably wouldn't come. But at least he'd be safe from me, from this world I'd pulled him into. I rode another elevator down, stepped out on the basement level, and blinked into the darkness. The red light on my ocular display throbbed slow and steady just ahead. Why was it so dark? The elevator door hissed closed behind me, and for a few seconds, I thought I'd be plunged into complete darkness. And then, down a long glass-lined corridor, a single light blinked on, highlighting the startling beauty of the dark-haired male warfae seated regally in his ornately carved oak chair. Long fingers held a wine glass aloft, its contents as blue as his hard, turquoise eyes. His slash of a smile said the words he didn't need to. I spun, reaching for the elevator, but the doorway and elevator were gone. Only blackness extended ahead of me, like the blackness of space but without the stars. The red light on my ocular map blinked out, and then the map went out too, leaving me blind to any escape. There was nothing here, just a blackness that swallowed everything. The ease of walking through the scanners, Soda's helpful guidance into the depths of Archon, it had all been an illusion. The warfae had dangled the bait, and I'd taken it like the gullible creature I was.
The Wraithmaker,
the fae drawled. His voice sailed into the endless space and crawled across my skin, sinking inside, luring old fears and desires out of the cages I kept them in. The shift of leather on leather, coupled with the soft swish of his hair, told me he had stood. But I didn't want to turn to see. There were no windows here, no doors. I had my whip, but attacking him would be pointless. He already had me. There's a time to fight, and a time to run. But there's also a time to bow low and live. I had fought him, and I had run from him. I knew what came next. I swallowed excess saliva, tasting acid, swallowed the bitter anger, despair, and shame. After so long, I hadn't believed the shame would still burn. Cool fingers slid over the back of my neck, curved around and clamped tight like the iron collar I'd once worn. My heart raced too hard, thumped too fast.
You're a long way from home,
he purred, his voice achingly smooth. Crater's death, the bounty on my head, Julia, the boot, Marshal Kali, even soda. They were frivolous things. Kesh Lasota's trinkets and toys. And beneath the warfae's touch, Kesh's life fell away like one of the many illusions I wore. The truth of me was so very different from that ghost of a girl. I was the slave-raised gladiator stolen away from my home with only a name to call my own. I was the Wraithmaker, killer of thousands in the starlit, blood-soaked arena. I had been Queen Mab's most trusted personal guard, and I had loved her, until I'd killed her. The warfae moved around me, keeping his grip clamped around my neck until he stood in front of me, drilling his gaze deep into mine.
Were you planning on running forever?
Only a lifetime. Mine. His lips twitched. He liked that. He also liked the fact he had caught me. Before, when I chased him down and leapt from his window, he hadn't known who I was, but there was no doubt on his face now. Something had revealed me to him. Soda. The truth hidden inside the drone, told to him on lonely nights when I needed to speak the secrets eating me up inside, had condemned me. Larson had probably only wanted the footage of Crater's murder, but what he'd found was a priceless prize. And I'd told him everything through Soda, told him all my fears and all the horrors, told him how I'd loved, hated, raged, and lost it all. The warfae pretending to be the human CEO of Archon, Istvan Larson, believed he knew me better than anyone left alive. Only one question remained. What did he plan to do with me? He closed his hand, sealing off my windpipe. My racing heart throbbed hot blood through my body and beat over and over inside my head. Tightness clamped around my chest, squeezing the consciousness right out of me. The darkness all around rushed in until the jewel-like glitter of his eyes was all I could see in an ocean of nothingness. Chapter 12. Cool iron encircled my neck. I remembered it being lighter, or more likely it had felt that way because I hadn't known a time without it. The iron dampened my magic, as it did all Fae magic. My whip was gone, as was my coat. He'd stripped me of them, and I knew it wouldn't be the worst of what was to come. He wouldn't kill me, not for a long time. The Fae made their victims beg first.
Stand!
The order reminded me of another time, so long ago, when I'd been a small girl trapped behind bars. I'd survived that. I'd thrived. I'd lived to kill for them. I'd loved them for it, and they'd loved me in return. Loved me enough for Mab to pick me out of the Saru and make me hers. Fingers dug into my hair. The warfae yanked me to my feet, hooked his hand into my clothing, and tore my shirt open. It wasn't my human nakedness he wanted to see. Hypnotic, dark swirls marked my pale skin. The marks of a killer. Awards, just like his.
It's true,
He whispered, eyes wide. I grinned. Now show me yours. He threw me down. The backhanded strike cracked against my jaw, whipping my head back and exploding coppery blood across my tongue. I reeled, clutching onto consciousness, and spat the mouthful of blood in his general direction, hoping to dirty up his leather attire. He lifted a hand to strike me again, and then he caught himself and stepped back, shaking out his aching, bloody fingers.
I will not kill you.
He'd figured out my little game. A quick death would be a mercy.
You are worth too much.
Coward, I slurred. He sneered down at me, and I beamed up at him. They were all so painfully beautiful, and he was no exception. I hated him so much it hurt more than any physical wound, but a horrible, treacherous part of me loved him too, and that made all this so much worse. I preferred you as Larson. At least that man had balls. Where are yours, little warfae? I eyed his crotch, ignoring the bulge of his obvious endowment. Been living with humans too long? You even smell like them." His hand was at my throat again, a little awkwardly this time as he had to fight with the collar.
"Your queen isn't here to save you. Why did you do it? Was it really just because you're so stupid that even after everything my kind did for you, raised you up among us, you still can't help but bite those you love like all wild beasts?"
Tears squeezed from the corners of my eyes. My heart pounded too hard, beating itself into a panic. I couldn't breathe, and a part of me hoped it would end here, just to spite him. Then his grip loosened, and my body sucked in air, desperate to keep me alive. I fell to my hands and concentrated on filling my lungs. So slowly, the world stopped spinning. The room I'd woken in was barren and lined in steel, probably a storage room. No windows and no doors. Nothing. Just him and me. I would have preferred the darkness. "What's your real name?" I asked. He ignored me and leaned back against the wall, staring, unblinking. His gaze traced my marks. I felt that slow visual exploration as if his fingers were skimming across my skin, or his tongue. Heat flushed my face, neck, and chest. The heat of anger and twisted desire. "What are you doing with Archon?" I asked, not expecting an answer. I didn't get one. He just stared down his nose at me. Resting back, I flicked my hair out of my eyes and lifted my gaze. What must it be like to have captured the Wraithmaker, a criminal sought by the entire Fae system? Would he hand me over to his kin or keep me for himself? If he took me home, getting in and out of Fairy unseen would be no easy thing. Istvan Larsson was a watched man. If he decided to take a trip to outer Halow and happened to sneak through the defensive net, I stopped my thoughts in their tracks. Archon maintained the defensive net, the barrier between the Fae system and Halow. The first and last line of defense against the Fae. Larsson held the key to the door and might let the Fae in at any time. And the humans of Halow had no idea how exposed they were. I rolled my lips and bowed my head, not wanting him to see the new fear on my face. He stepped forward and crouched, resting his wrists on his knees, long, nimble fingers loose. "Did you dismantle my drone?" I blinked dry eyes, letting the dread sink into my gut.
"The drone."
His eyes narrowed with uncertainty.
"Oh, your drone." Can you imagine my surprise when my workers cracked it open, revealing not only footage of the assassination, but also a full confession by a wanted murderer? I had wondered why a nobody messenger was so determined to retrieve that drone. You'll be pleased to know any footage of Crater's death was deleted. As for your murder confession..."
He touched my cheek and delicately ran his fingertips across my skin. I fought my instinct to lean into the touch. It had been so long since their kind had touched me. So long since I'd tasted their magic and willingly embraced it.
"Only you and I know the truth of that. It can be our secret."
Every word he spoke sounded like an illicit promise. It didn't matter what those words meant. His tone was sweet seduction wrapped around the hard, ugly stone. He would use my weak human desires against me. I gazed into his eyes, confused to find something akin to my own longing reflected there. Then it occurred to me that he was likely alone. He had spent years building up a resistance to tech. I might be the only Fae-like creature he had seen in a long time. I could use that and the Fae's social desires to my advantage. I touched his hand, the one covering my cheek, and tilted my head up. I had to tell someone the truth. Nobody likes to be alone. His eyes instantly hardened. He snatched his hand back and straightened. He paused at the door, head slightly turned, words unspoken on his lips. And then he was gone, the door closing behind him, accompanied by the chunky snick of a lock. I still didn't know if Sota was alive, but I was, for now. I had one advantage over Larson. He would think me human. He would think he was irresistible, that he held all the power. He was wrong. Time passed too slowly. Nothing of the world outside breached the room, as though my four walls were all that existed. My stomach cramped with hunger pangs, and my lips had cracked. I'd been missing 2 days, at least. Only nobody missed me. Julia would likely think I was a long way from Calicto. And the marshal? Would Kali miss me? If he had listened to my warnings, he would have left and not looked back. He should have left. But while I didn't know him well, I did know he wasn't the quitting type. Twice he had tracked me down, asking his damn questions. I had faith he would locate me again, if he wanted to. Wraithmaker. The Fae had killed his people. All of them. And in his eyes, I was Fae too. Still, he knew enough about Istvan Larsen to watch the pretend CEO closely. Maybe if I got a message to Kali, he could alert the authorities to the vulnerabilities in the defense net. If anything, I was in the best place to act. Nobody could get closer to Larsen. No human, certainly. Luck had put me right where I needed to be to stop him. Not luck. It was always meant to be this way. The door rattled, and Larsen entered. He threw a robe to the floor.
Put that on and follow me.
I rose on unsteady legs and tugged on the toweling robe. My first steps outside the room revealed more steel-lined walls. Larsen opened another door to a simple, functional bathroom.
You have 15 minutes.
He closed the door, leaving me alone. I waited for the lock to slide into place, but didn't hear it. After a few beats, I tried the door, cracking it open. Larsen's voice sailed down the corridor.
There's nowhere to go.
I would soon test that for myself, after I'd cleaned up. The mirror above the basin reflected a dapple of yellow and purplish bruises spreading across my cheek. I'd repay him for that, once I had control of the situation. The dry shower felt as though it stripped off a layer of skin. Clean, I stepped out and threw my pants back on. I discarded my torn shirt and pulled the robe on over my shoulders, tying it tightly. The corridor outside was empty. I didn't believe for a second Larsen had left me unguarded. Light-footed, I dashed away from where I believed he was. The few doors I found opened into empty rooms. No windows. Were we underground? Every door, every curve, took me to another artificially lit, empty space, until I entered the largest room of all. At least here there was a table and a single chair. And Larsen. He stood on the opposite side of the table, hands clasped behind his back, eyes sparkling. Several packets of dried food lay on the table between us. My hollow insides ached. This wasn't fairy. If I accepted his reward of food, it didn't mean I was indebted to him. But I hesitated. Old habits still had their claws in me.
Eat freely.
He gestured at the table.
Unfettered.
There would come a time to fight, and when the opportunity presented itself, I needed to be ready. I sat and opened the packets, devouring the contents under his watchful gaze. The food was nothing spectacular, but it filled me out and stopped the cramps. When he placed a tall glass of clear liquid on the table, I stopped eating and eyed it side on. Surely not.
I can afford some luxuries,
he explained, sensing my hesitation. Real water? I lifted the glass and sniffed. Slightly metallic. How had he come by it? Had he imported it? Just the single glass was worth thousands of V, and he was giving it to me? I set it down and pushed it across the table toward him. I'll pass. If I had offended him, he didn't show it. If anything, he appeared amused.
There's no debt.
Still, I don't think I want anything of yours.
You obviously do. You're dehydrated.
What do you want? What is all this? I waved a hand at the empty packets. Am I a prisoner or a guest? If I'm a guest, I'd appreciate it if you'd remove this. I tugged the collar forward, digging it into the back of my neck. He watched, so calm, so measured.
It is just a glass of water.
But it wasn't. Real water was rarer than gold, rarer than wood. This gift didn't make any sense. If he was going to send me home, then why hadn't he? If he was going to kill me, then why waste time with this charade?
Do you miss the rain?
He asked. I stared at him. Did I miss the fucking rain? And then it clicked. I hadn't been back to Fairy in 5 years, but he had been away from his home much longer. As Fae, he needed the earth beneath his feet like I needed air to breathe. He needed that grounding, living, breathing presence that flooded every single inch of Fairy. In comparison, Calicto, with all its tech and manufactured domes, might as well have been a barren desert. He was starved of home. A chip of compassion broke from my hate. Oh, I still despised him, but I understood why he stared the way he did, why he watched me eat, why his gaze lingered as though he were hungry. I lifted my chin. Take off this collar and I'll tell you. The corner of his lips ticked. Nothing like a smile, just an acknowledgement that he knew what I was thinking and he wouldn't barter with me. What's your name? I asked again. Your human one doesn't suit you. He closed the distance between us in a few strides, picked up the glass, raised it to his lips, and drank long, deep, and hard. I watched the smooth line of his neck gently undulate and imagined the cool liquid passing over my tongue. A small drop escaped the corner of his lips and dribbled down his chin. What might it be like to lick that droplet off? What might it be like to taste him? I recognized the tight flutter of anticipation coiling low inside for the lust it was and let it happen. Some things were too good to resist, even if they were wrong. Too quickly, the show was over. He lowered the glass and used his thumb to wipe the drop from his chin. He smiled that same knowing, smug-ass smile as when he'd stolen soda from me. Bastard. When I smiled back, my lips cracked.
What's your name, Kesh Lasota?
He asked. You know it. Wraithmaker. Because I'd killed so many, turning their lives to dust, their spirits to ghosts. And in the end, I'd killed the one they had all loved above any other.
No.
He set the glass down, spread his hands on the tabletop, and leaned in so close I could almost count each delicate eyelash framing his brilliant fey eyes.
Your real name. Your slave name. That is what you are. Risen out of the slums to serve my people. Trained in the art of slaughter for our entertainment.
I licked a drop of blood from my split lip, relishing the coppery taste. I'd tasted fey blood like his, and I would taste it again soon. I've never told a single fey soul. What makes you think I'll tell you? He laughed softly.
I should give you up.
He whispered as though this was our little secret.
But I think I'll keep you for my personal entertainment. After the sacrifices I've made, it's only fair.
It took every ounce of restraint I had not to grab him by his long braided hair and smack his face into the table. He wanted me to. That was the only reason he'd moved in so close. He wanted me to react, to make him retaliate twice as hard. But this was not the place to fight. I had no way out. Attacking now would only free me for a few moments, like a bird fluttering inside its cage. No, I needed a plan, an exit, before I made my move. A moment passed between us, one of mutual understanding. I was his bird, caught in his cage, my wings clipped for his entertainment. But this bird had talons, and I wouldn't hesitate to use them. With a throwaway laugh, he left the room. I listened to his light footfalls fade into silence and waited for the sound of a door closing. It eventually came, sounding a long distance away. The curved steel corridors had likely bent the sound. I would find the right door, and I would escape him. I scooped up his glass and clenched it in a fist, ready to throw it against the nearest wall and watch it shatter into a million pieces. But a few drops had gathered at the bottom. Condensation, probably. I touched the glass to my lips, tasted his sweetness, and threw my head back. Real wetness, real water moistened my tongue, and with it came the intoxicating taste of Fae. I swallowed the dregs, drank the taste of him down. He had known I couldn't resist for long. Chapter 13.
Put these on.
Larson threw a bundle of clothes at my feet and dangled my coat in front of him like a lure.
And this.
I stood from the cot, one I'd found in one of the other rooms, and approached. It had been a few days since he had caught me. He had returned with food and synthesized liquid. No water. I'd blown my chance at getting more. And no conversation, either. But he liked to linger, to watch. All Fae liked to watch. I took the coat and turned my back on him to shrug the robe off my shoulders.
I took the liberty of emptying the pockets.
He said.
All of them.
Some pockets could only be found with the magic at my fingertips, but with the collar on, they were shut away anyway. As I dressed, his gaze warmed my marks, stirring them to life with a not unpleasant tingling. Did I have more than him? The more marks I had, the higher my status among the Fae. As the Queen's Guard, few outranked me. I caught him looking, his eyes lifted, questions burning there. Had he ever seen me fight? Most Fae had. Some had been lucky enough to watch the spectacular performance live at the arena.
An interesting garment,
He commented, nodding at the coat. He would think so. The coat was Fae-made. I fastened it closed, something I almost never did, and wore the collar high to hide the iron one resting on my collarbone. Can I get my whip back? He merely smiled. Afraid I might strangle you with it?
You are the least frightening thing in this forsaken system.
And with a gesture for me to follow, he turned and strode off, assuming I'd trail behind him. I counted the doors we passed, looking for distinguishing marks. Initially, they had all looked the same, but in the many hours I'd spent roaming the corridors, I'd found scuff marks and handprints. He moved quickly, long legs breezing down the corridor until he stopped outside a door like any other. A flick of the handle and the door opened, revealing a flight of stairs. I soaked it up, committing the layout to memory so that when he inevitably brought me back, I would know which way was out. An elevator carried us to floor G2. He flicked his fingers at himself, weaving an illusion. A bitter citrus smell filled the elevator, and his outline blurred and then sharpened. In the Fae's place stood an unassuming, drab human male in comparison. He straightened his scarlet tie, human fingers fumbling a little. Damn, he was good at this. His act was in place moments before the elevator doors opened, and off he strode out. As a human, his stride was heavier, and when he spoke, his voice had deepened with a gravelly undertone. His illusion was perfect in its imperfections. If I wasn't walking next to him, if I hadn't seen his transformation myself, I wouldn't believe he was Fae. We walked down the glass halls, Larson attracting glances from Archon staff, and paused outside a clear-walled office. Inside, Sota sat silent on his dock. I tried the door, but it didn't budge.
Nobody goes in or out without my authorization,
Larson explained. I pressed my hand to the glass wall. Soda's red eye was a constant glow. His charge light blinked. My friend. My only friend in the 3 systems.
You will do everything I ask.
Larson spoke softly.
While in public, you will act as though we are acquaintances. If you try to alert the authorities or contact anyone, I will punish him.
Soda? I mentally called. Silence came back. Is he mentally intact? I asked, looking up to find Larson's hideous smile firmly on his lips.
Yes. He fought our every attempt to crack him open. He has a filthy vocabulary for a tactical drone.
Soda had picked up some of the more colorful language from the sinks and delighted in shocking message recipients with oddly placed swear words in the middle of their messages. I smiled at the memory. He had fought. Good for him. If I had come sooner, if I had stopped Larson in his meeting room instead of running.
You gave him life. Obey me, and your gift will continue.
Obey me. Everything about that order made my skin crawl. I'd spent my entire life obeying them. I had obeyed them until it almost cost me my life, and it had certainly cost the Queen hers. For how long am I supposed to pretend?
When your usefulness has expired, I will let you know.
I arched an eyebrow. He didn't want to kill me. All I had to do was pretend to know him as the human Istvan Larson while I plotted the best way to kill him. In the meantime, I'd garner as much information as possible about his operation and motives for being here, and pass that information on to someone who could do something about it. Someone like Kali. Inside, I smiled. Agreed. He nodded.
Now follow me.
We walked through Archon, floor after floor after floor. Miles of corridors, through a sprawling mass of glass laboratories, weapons development, and the day-to-day administration of such a vast company. Wherever he went, people showered Larson with attention. Staff would fall into step beside him and debrief him on the latest profit margins. Others would stop Larson and chat like they were the best of friends. The more I watched, the more my insides clenched in anxiety at the depth of his deception. His act went beyond a charade. He lived this role, breathed it, and became it. There was danger in illusion. It was too easy to fall into the trappings of another life. Hadn't I done the same as Kesh Lasota? The glass pyramid facade was just Archon's frontage. Its collection of buildings spread outward into neighboring locations, like a university campus scattered across miles of land, and much of Archon lay buried beneath street level in areas Larson avoided. He barely said a word to me the entire time I walked at his side, and without an introduction, his people also ignored me. But they were curious, casting me keen glances as we passed by. I figured the young CEO rarely had company. Any questions I asked, he ignored. Several times I lingered near clearly marked exits, instincts plucking on my determination, urging me to flee. But running would solve nothing. I was exactly where I needed to be. Finally, the tour ended in the long meeting room where I'd leapt through the window. That section of glass had been repaired with a metal plate. From the outside, it must have looked like a blemish on Archon's perfect facade. Larson moved around his oak chair, running his hand along the carved back. The oak wasn't from Earth, I realized. It had been carved as a single piece from the vast oaks, the original trees, found on Fairy. Seeing it there, I could almost smell the accompanying rain and hear its sweet symphony as it fell on the lush undergrowth, lifting delicate puffs of magic into the air. The oak chair would have lost its ingrained fey magic a long time ago, but that didn't stop his touch from lingering, perhaps imagining the same as me. He looked my way, unblinking, daring me to ask all the questions clamoring in my head. I wanted to know what he was doing here, what the point was in all of this, and I wanted to ask if he missed Fairy like I did. But more than anything else, I wanted to know his name. As much as he pretended to be Larson, he wasn't human and never would be. The same as I would never be Fae. I needed to know his name. He came around the front of the chair and lowered himself into it. When he looked away, I caught the flicker of pain crossing his face. Dropping his head back, he closed his eyes. He still wore the human illusion, but this young human male had suddenly aged.
A long time ago,
He began, keeping his eyes closed.
we would pluck humans from their lives and have them live among us on Fairy. We replaced them with one of our own, a changeling adept at pretending to be human so no one would miss them. In those times, their tech hadn't advanced to the levels of today.
He opened his eyes and blinked, refocusing on the room and me.
It was harmless.
I know the tales. And it was a long way from harmless if you were one of the humans the Fae had taken.
We would make them dance and sing, and the foolish creatures always fell in love with us, with fairy.
I turned my attention to the windows and calypto sparkling outside. Some aspects of fairy hadn't changed at all in thousands of years. They still lured humans into their games and killed them with their so-called kindness.
When we grew bored, in days or years, we would send them back to their world, back to Earth.
Where they would die, I thought. They all died, wilted like flowers cut at the stem. The cruelty didn't come from taking the people. The game was all about sending them home again and watching the human rant and scream and demand to return to the world they had come to love. A world that to anyone else didn't exist. To love the Fae was a madness, and the Fae knew it. When he didn't continue his tale, I looked back and found his face turned to the glass, his sharp features in profile. He knew what those tragic humans had gone through because, cut from fairy, he felt it too. "How long have you been here?" I asked. He hesitated and then lifted a hand, tossing away time as though it meant nothing. Did he even know how long? Something the imprisoned Fae, Talon, had said came back to me. No Fae would willingly put themselves through this agony. Not only was Larson severed from everything he knew and loved, but he also endured day after day surrounded by human tech. He had built up a resistance, but it must have still pained him. Was it a punishment? I'd assumed he was doing all of this deliberately, but what if I'd been wrong? What if his act was a prison? I smiled, realizing the trap I'd fallen into, sympathizing with my jailer, a novice mistake, and one I knew to avoid. It seemed I had forgotten much in 5 years.
Strange how I stumble upon the Wraithmaker, of all creatures,
He mused, still gazing out the window.
In all the 3 systems, on all the countless planets, you are the messenger I hired to take the blame for a murder.
His gaze cut to me.
What brought you to Calicto?
It was the destination of the first ship I boarded after escaping Fairy. Why did you kill Crater? He ignored my question and frowned.
How did you escape?
I smiled instead of answering. I wasn't about to tell him, considering I may have to escape again soon.
I'm not sure I believe you,
he said candidly.
The odds are impossible. You found me here, of all places, by chance? No, I don't think that's what happened.
He pushed from his chair, his movements hardening.
Humans lie as easily as they breathe. You have no honor, no integrity. That's why they sent you.
He approached, intent punctuating each stride. I stood my ground, even when he stopped too close, filling everything with his pretend Istvan Larson with his sharp suit and the charming glint in his eye. Who was the greater liar here? He may not lie with his words, those were the only part of him that couldn't lie. But the rest of him wove lies as easily as he wove illusions. Whatever he had planned to do fizzled away under my glare. Instead, he touched my coat shoulder and ran his fingers down a seam. He pined so for home that he sought out its touch anywhere and everywhere. His head tilted and his eyes narrowed, losing some of their shallow human sheen. He wore biotech lenses to hide their true radiance, but now that I knew what I was looking for, I saw through it to the reality hidden inside. And what lurked in there wasn't entirely whole. This Fae, whoever he was broken. Chapter 14. Over the next few days, Larson continued to lead me around Archon like his new pet. Any questions about me were met with vague dismissals. I let it happen, absorbing the layout of the building and all the information. As far as captivity went, I'd endured worse. His lingering gazes and unspoken questions indicated he didn't trust me. His paranoid mind had concocted some conspiracy with me at its center. When we were above the basement, the name I'd given my underground prison, he didn't leave my side. I'd slipped away a few times while he'd been distracted, but he always knew where I'd be before I did. The one time I had tried to break into Soda's room, he'd appeared at my side minutes after I thought I had given him the slip. It was uncanny, but then he was Fae, albeit a lonely, insane, underpowered one. But he did have magic. I felt it in his gaze and in the rare times his fingers brushed mine. Either he knew how to preserve it, or he had a source to draw from hidden somewhere. All Fae carried their own magical reserve, but it was reduced when away from Fairy. The longer they spent away from their home, the more wraith-like they became. It was why the Fae, with their superior power, didn't inhabit all 3 star systems. That, and the fact humans insisted on creating more and more tech, poisoning the Fae's backyard. The latest outing Larson insisted I join him on involved a party-like gathering. One of Archon's training auditoriums had been transformed with enormous ribbon bows and spiraling decorations. Apparently, it was Archon's 30-year anniversary. Tech surveillance had obviously existed before Archon, but they'd taken it and now owned the industry. Or rather, Larson owned it. He was the star of the show. Everyone wanted a piece of the young, dynamic CEO. I did my part, shadowing Larson until he allowed me to break away and sample some of the exotic food spread across several tables.
Hi!
A woman thrust her hand at me and beamed a bright smile.
I'm Cindy. I work for Istvan. He keeps you so close. Everyone's been dying to meet you.
I finished the mouthful of rice and some kind of vegetable that had tasted divine after my dull diet of packet food. Hey. I took her hand and gave it a friendly shake. Kesh. She had referred to Larson by his first name. Few of his staff did that. That either put her in his inner circle or she was lying to make it appear as though they were friends. I couldn't recall ever seeing her, but then Larson appeared to cut several of Archon's departments out of my regular tours. I picked up another rice parcel and devoured it. I'd eat the whole damn spread given enough time. Then I imagined Larson watching me hoard food and equally imagined the bastard's thrill at seeing his control over me. Suddenly, the food didn't look so tempting.
So, what do you do for Istvan?
Sandy asked, flicking her razor-straight bangs back.
Carlo in accounting thinks you're an investor, but well...
She raked her gaze over me.
Some of us think you're an apprentice. You know, someone he's training for a high-end executive role.
Her thinly veiled skepticism and jealousy might as well have been a luminescent sign blinking over her head. I glanced across the room in time to catch Larson's eye. He saw who I was standing with and promptly excused himself from his little gaggle of groupies. I had about 8 seconds of fun before he ruined it. I smiled at Cindy and beckoned her closer. I'll tell you, if you can keep a secret.
Oh!
Her eyes lit up. She stepped closer in her needlepoint heels.
Do tell.
He keeps me in the basement. She laughed. I didn't. I picked up a tiny parcel of sweet pastry, my mouth watering. He's not who you think he is.
Kesh!
Larson stood rigidly behind Cindy's shoulder. He said my name like he was lashing a whip. I grinned back at the fake man and popped the pastry parcel into my mouth, crunching down. Cindy, pale-faced and confused, teetered off. Foolish human. Larson stepped to my side, easing his hand around my arm and holding me firmly at his side. His magic tingled, his illusion active. He pretended to admire the food while the party continued behind him.
I warned you.
I mumbled. All these smiling, happy people. What would they say if I yelled out the truth? Larson would probably cover it up with a laugh and a joke. No one would believe me. My gaze snagged on a familiar face standing still in the crowd. Artfully tousled hair, keen eyes reading the scene, but no smile. This was the last place Marshal Kali wanted to be. My heart stuttered at the sight of him. Larson had no use for the lawman. If Kali got in his way, Larson would kill him. He saw me. People filtered back and forth between us, but his gaze locked on me and then skipped to the man at my side. I knew how it looked. Larson stood too close, his hand on my arm. Here I was, apparently enjoying the party next to the camouflaged fae. Betrayal hardened Kelly's frown. I wanted to shout to him that it wasn't what it looked like.
What part of your drone's beloved character shall I delete for this indiscretion?
Larson asked, amusement dancing in his voice. Kelly began to turn. I clenched my teeth together. Wait. He was so close, just across the room, and he was leaving because his fears had been realized. I'd lied to him. I was Faye. He'd come to check, and now he had seen what he thought was confirmation of all his suspicions. I had to stop him. I had to reach him without Larson knowing. I yanked down my coat collar. Fabric tore. I didn't care. Kali hesitated. Confusion crossed his face.
What are you doing?
Larson demanded. He saw the glimmer of iron resting around my neck and twisted to face the crowd, seeking the source of my fixation. So many witnesses, but Kali had gone. There 1 second, vanished the next. He was good at that. I grinned at Larson. Larson's human appearance flickered. He towered over me, sneering, his grip on my arm turning to iron like the collar around my neck. He pulled me off the floor and through a doorway, not caring that his staff all watched it happen. I would pay for this, either by way of soda or imprisonment. I'd pushed him too far. I twisted in his grip and bucked, and his fingers dug harder into my arm. I brought my arm up, over his, and slammed it down, breaking his hold. He reached for me again, but I lunged away, almost free. He snatched my coat, yanking me off balance, but instead of falling into him, I dipped my weight sideways, dropped to my hands, and elbowed his weight-bearing knee out from under him. He tumbled to the floor on his side. In a whirl, I slipped free of my coat, kicked the garment over his face and pinned it down, digging my knee into his chest. My hands fit neatly around his throat, holding the coat over his face. He flailed, blindly grabbing for my head. Figures blurred in the corners of my vision. More witnesses. I didn't care. It would solve a lot of problems if I killed Larson here and now. Someone shouted at me to stop. Someone else barked to call the law. Will they send Kali?
Kesh!
Larson hissed, accusing or begging. Yes, beg. Beg like all the others did while your kin's cheering filled my head. The scent of citrus spiked the air. His power leached out of him. His illusions wouldn't save him. I squeezed tighter. The lights went out. Darkness flooded the corridor, and with it came a rush of citrusy magic. Kesh, Queen Mab whispered in my ear. Larson bucked. My grip slipped. He twisted. Fingers snatched my arm, yanking me toward him. I searched the dark for her, already knowing it was a trick, a terrible hope used against me. But if there was a chance she was here... Larson hauled me to my feet and pinned me against a wall. The solid weight of him smothered me, hemming me in. Darkness blinded me while a wall of male fae blocked my escape. People shouted. Movement stirred the shadows. I stilled. My thoughts slowed. Larson's racing heart beat so close to mine. Larson's short breaths tickled my ear.
Very good, Wraithmaker. Now let the entertainment begin.
Larson wasn't weak. The trick he had pulled in Archon's corridors, the darkness, the voices. Her voice. That took substantial magic. He had a source, somewhere. But it was impossible outside of Fairy, wasn't it? After my failed attempt to kill him and his odd enjoyment of the whole incident, he shut me in the basement. I immediately tried the door he closed behind me, only to find it opened into yet another empty room. I tried all the doors, all empty rooms. I wondered if the basement was an illusion too, one I was trapped in. I jogged the corridors and then ran them until sweat glued my clothes to my skin. When the food and water stopped coming, I stopped exercising, needing to conserve my strength. He hadn't left me this long before. I smashed his glass, the same glass he had left for me in the beginning, against the wall and instantly regretted it, knowing he had left it there for exactly that reason. I counted the pieces where they lay and waited for the anger to wane. At least Kelly knew I wasn't here by choice. He must have seen the color. But what if he acted on it? What if he confronted Larson? The Fae had already killed Kelly's people. Larson would finish the job. I paced back and forth in my room. Think. I knew how to push Larson's buttons. He didn't want to hand me over to the Fae courts. He said he was keeping me for entertainment, but he'd also said he suspected me of working for them. Handing me over would expose him, and he didn't appear to want that either. I had to figure out a way to use what I knew. Attacking him in the hallway had been foolish, but I'd learned a few things. I knew he had a reserve of power. I also knew he wanted me to fight him, either because of my reputation or to get revenge for the death of his queen. The Fae loved to draw out their vendettas. Courtly families warred for years behind closed smiles and veiled threats. Mab had liked that about me. She had told me I was simple, meaning it as a compliment. So, he wanted to play a game. I was good at games. My coat, draped over the back of the chair, caught my eye. I picked it up and rummaged through its pockets, finding nothing. Turning it inside out, I did the same again. Nothing. With a frustrated growl, I walked the corridors. The walls, the floor, the ceiling, all were smooth. The motion-sensing tech that controlled the lights were locked away behind immovable panels. If I had access to them, I could strip the units down and remake them into useful tech. I threw my coat on, ignoring the torn flap, and slid down a wall to tuck myself in a corner. The table was still there, bolted to the floor, surrounded by broken glass. Not so long ago, I'd stood behind Queen Mab's right-hand side. If she could see me now, she would laugh. The Wraithmaker could easily endure a few days in isolation. This was nothing. But I wasn't the Wraithmaker anymore. I'd seen to that when I killed her. I wasn't Kesh, either. And I'd been taken from my home too young to know who I'd been before the Fae. I had a Saru name from before. That was all. No memories of my home, no memories of my parents. Just a name. It was all I had that was completely me before the Fae corrupted me. I buried my hands in my coat pockets and rested my head back against the wall. I would find out what Larson wanted from me, and I'd give it to him. I'd make him think he controlled me, owned me like the Fae owned all Saru. And then he would talk. He would tell me his name and his reason for being here, and he would tell me what Archon was hiding. When I knew all his secrets, I would break them open the way he had broken Sota open. I would reveal the Fae to the humans, and he would pay. Nobody would come to save him, not this far from Fairy. My fingers touched a small tile of cool metal. I picked it out of my pocket. My home-built comms. Larson had missed it. Would it work? Quickly, I pressed it to the skin behind my ear. Kelly? The silence dragged alongside the hopeful race of my heart. Kelly? I asked more softly, realizing any chance of the signal reaching me here, below Archon, was remote. Please answer. I don't want to be alone.
Kesh.
The signal was so weak I wasn't sure if I'd imagined hearing my name. I pressed the comms harder into my skin. Kelly? Please. And waited. A heartbeat. Another. I didn't hear the voice again. Kelly, I sighed. If you can hear me, you can help me now.